Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Facebook Live with a special edition on coronavirus, which is the most prominent issue around the world at the moment. And tonight I'm going to be sharing some coping skills for this crisis. My name is Tula Tzoras. I'm the founder of the Areti Goddess events, and we are dedicated to changing statistics for women specifically, to change our statistics and to put women center stage where we deserve to be. And you're welcome to join our movement, and you can do that with all the details below. And you know, if you like these videos, share them, and you're welcome to comment as well on the live feed as we go along. And what I want to do today is provide you with some practical skills, and if you stay till the end, I'm also going to be taking you through a very, very quick and powerful, as it is simple, exercise to dispel fear, which is what it all comes down to. And to begin with, in order to dispel that fear, I've got some facts for you. And as usual, I've made notes. So if I look away, that's the reason. And so let's start some facts about coronavirus, okay? Now, the number of cases worldwide is 114,422. Now, out of that number, the number of deaths has been 4,027, and the number of recovered patients, 64,088. What does that tell us? That tells us that there is an 80% recovery rate worldwide. Furthermore, you will find that we lose more people, say in Australia, annually due to the common effects of influenza. So that's another thing to put things into perspective. Now, I have done some research, and the UN Trade and Development Agency is saying that the economic uncertainty cost to the global economy is likely to reach up to $2 trillion in 2020. And according to the World Health Organization, though the threat of the coronavirus becoming an official pandemic has become very real to us, the world is not at the mercy of this virus. And this comes from the World Health Organization. So what we can see on a global, on a global scale, what we're dealing with is fear on a global scale. And that, of course, is joined by other major events. In fact, fear is, you know, the driving force in the world at the moment. And today, what we're going to do is actually go through some coping mechanisms on a personal level, because as we know, we cannot control people, places, or things. We're not in control of what happens outside of ourselves. What we can control is our own reactions to things. Now, we can be very, very grateful to our amygdala, the back of our brain, because we are wired in our DNA to actually recognize danger, and that's the part of us that goes into fight or flight. So that's in our DNA, and that's there to protect us. And so fear, in effect, is there to protect us and alert us. So it's not a matter of actually avoiding fear in this case. It's a matter of working with your fear. So obviously we have a fundamental need to be safe and have what we need to survive. And here in Australia, in the past few months, with the bushfires and the devastating effect of those, and now the effect of coronavirus, what we have come to realize through that deprivation is that at any point in time, we may, in fact, have to go without. So when the bushfire, with the bushfires happening, people lost their homes. They were cut off. They weren't able to buy basic necessities. Now, what we've seen in Australia alone, let alone the rest of the world, is people fighting for things like toilet paper and other goods as well, which has actually put our supermarkets out of stock, right? All because of panic. Now, I'm not saying that this is not justified. All I'm saying is that when we're in a state of panic, we're less able to make informed and constructive decisions. So that's what we're referring to. All this panic, which I, from my part, would like to help as much as I can. So that's why we're here today. Now, of course, we are afraid. One thing, this is for me, and this is something I want to share with you. One thing the last few months has signaled to me is the fact that at any given point in time, we can go without. And with weather events becoming more and more pronounced as time goes by, with our resources becoming more and more limited, with things like viruses and all those other issues we have all around the world, I am thinking that it may well be time for us to hone our skills. Not only that, but to actually adapt to the thought of perhaps having less, and how can we become resourceful to cope with having less or perhaps being deprived at any given time. So that's just a bit of my thought process that I wanted to share with you, because I think it's worthwhile, especially for us city people who don't know how to survive out in the bush or, source food, etc. These are skills that could come in handy sometime. So I'm going to get down to some practical tips for you now, and I've got 9 practical tips for you. But if you stay till the end, I'm also going to take you through a very quick, easy and powerful exercise to dispel that fear, because it is fear that everything comes down to. In fact, that we only have 2 drivers in life. One is love and one is fear. At the moment, we are gripped by fear. So my first tip to you is, when we feel fear, it hasn't actually happened yet, right? We're fearful that something may happen. So in actual fact, that is a fantasy. Now, when we think of it that way, we can either buy into that fantasy, which can quite often be unrealistic or irrational, or we can train our minds to think of a positive outcome instead. We are the creators of our own lives, so we can actually do that. We have the power. Okay, so the next tip, which is great at getting to the bottom of any fear, is always to ask, what is the worst possible scenario in this situation? Quite often, when we look at the worst possible thing that can happen, it's not as bad as we think. So that's another tip. My third tip to you is what I mentioned before. Fear is there to protect you. So you can actually embrace it and feel it. Just don't let it control you. Because as we know, when we're in a panic, we can actually be paralyzed by fear. So it's really worthwhile to feel your fear and embrace it and use it instead so you can thrive. Okay, my next tip to you is, when you're faced with a very fearful situation, just stop. Breathe deeply and slowly using your abdominal breath. And if you don't know what that is, it's when your tummy expands. So that's deep breathing. Breathe deeply and slowly. Assess the situation, process the situation, make a plan, and then, and only then, take action. Because quite often when we go into that fight or flight response, what we do is jump to it and take action, and it's not always the best thing because we don't have all the information, we haven't processed it, and we're not coming from a very centered and calm heart and mind. My next tip is to gather all the information you need so that you have an actual sense of proportion and you can make informed decisions, which is further from the last tip I gave you. When we put things into proportion, quite often they're not as big as we imagine. My next tip, which is tip number 6, is always remember everything changes and this too shall pass. One thing we can be absolutely sure of, as sure as we are of taxes, is that everything changes. And in actual fact, the only security and safety we can have is in uncertainty. When we're in uncertainty, according to Dr. Deepak Chopra, that I deeply, deeply value, when we're in uncertainty, we're on the right path. My next tip to you, tip number 7, to avoid feeling overwhelmed in the face of a fearful situation, actually break it down into little pieces. So if you break it down into little pieces and deal with a piece at a time, you will indeed avoid overwhelm. The next tip I have for you is to treat fear as a motivator. Get inspired. And that's my next tip. So this is what happens when say for instance that something happens. You can answer this and you can comment as well. What is the value of saying, why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? How did this happen? Are any of those questions helpful? If you, however, release judgment, this is bad, good, right, wrong, if you just see something for what it is and you say, okay, this is the situation, and instead you ask, what now? What do I do now? That immediately opens you up to being more resourceful, and it opens up your inspiration as well. So all of a sudden, you see all these amazing solutions come forward. Now, obviously, coronavirus is a threat. So do keep in mind that 80% of the cases have recovered, and do keep in mind that it doesn't mean it will happen to you. And say that is the worst scenario and it does happen to you. Then you can get treated as quickly as possible. And given the statistics that 80% have recovered from it, I think you'll be okay. Well, fingers crossed you will be okay. Remember that positive affirmation and positive visualization and choosing a positive outcome over buying into fear and letting it control us will act as an order to the universe, as simple as ordering a meal. So trust in that, my friends. And Goddess says, now what I have for you is a very simple, easy exercise, which I've done with some of my, or most of my clients actually. So what I want you to do now is just close your eyes and start to breathe slowly and deeply in and out. If you find your mind is racing, you can use a count. So you can breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're feeling anxious, you can hold your breath for a couple of beats at the end of the in-breath and then breathe out slowly and deeply again and empty out all that air. So take a breath in and hold and take a breath out. Another thing you can do just to release anything that is restricting you at the moment is as you breathe in the word let and breathe out the word go. Now, as you're breathing deeply and slowly in and out, I want you to personify fear and separate it from yourself. So you can have fear in front of you. You can have fear next to you. It's probably best that you do have fear in front of you. So that you can visualize fear in any way it comes to you. It can be a color, it can be an object, it can be a shape. It can be anything, as long as it is fear. So you're separating fear from yourself and you're putting it in front of you. And what I want you to do now is imagine a cord joining you to that fear. Now, when you've got that, what I'd like you to do is pick up a huge pair of scissors. When you've picked up that pair of scissors, cut that cord. Release that fear and you can watch that fear disappear, run away, however it goes, just watch it disappear. How is that? It sounds really simple, doesn't it? I tell you what though, it is extremely powerful. So trust it, and in fact, anytime anything comes up for you that you want to let go, you can use that cord exercise and you can just cut off the cord, because fear does not belong to you. In fact, the only truth is love. So I hope that empowers you and that makes you feel calmer. Always remember to breathe. It can be absolutely chaotic around you. That doesn't mean you have to buy into it. So with that, I leave you and I will see you next week, same bat time, same bat channel. You can book a free coaching call with me. The link is below. And also, you can get a free preview now on the Areti Goddess online program, which is coupled with coaching, and it is personally and professionally empowering for you to boost your self-worth. And it's great if you have a purpose and passion and you want to start a business. It's the full package. So check it out. That's on the website and you can watch a free preview. Until then, wishing you amazing success. #GoddessRise.